So very quickly here, Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. I've been at a lot of the events that the city of Inkster is doing this year, this month, for African American History Month. And they have 28 days of events, so I know this is part of it. This is the first time I've ever seen a city organize 28 days of events for African American History Month. So that's fantastic. So this short presentation is a brief overview of two larger presentations that are about 3 hours each. This is Breaking the Chains, how Black History Month and Black Panther reconnect us to our history and culture, exposed on this, okay? All right, so, and I have a full presentation I've done dealing with the history of African American History Month, dealing with Dr. Carter G. Woodson and exposing myths in our history as well. Like the Emancipation Proclamation is not what freed enslaved Africans, it was the 13th Amendment. The Black John Hanson was not president, he was a senator to Liberia. I don't deep into a lot of this history. So this presentation here is dedicated to two of my heroes, Malcolm X and Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali won the heavyweight championship at age 22, February 25th, 1964. And then we know Malcolm was assassinated February 21st, 1965 also. Both took place in February, okay? And I'm on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. Hey, anybody listen to 9:10 a.m. WFDF? I'm on Sunday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, African History Network shows. Hopefully you'll start listening now. I passed around my pamphlet that has the information there. You can also go to my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can listen live, it has a link there, but you can also listen to almost 900 audio podcasts of my show going back 9 years, okay? And it also connects you to my YouTube channel as well. So some of the things I do with this presentation are the origins of African American History Month, Black History Month, why was it created, how do we make it relevant for the day and the future, okay? Instead of just recycling the same 15 to 20 sanitized Negroes every year, right? How do we make it relevant? Okay, because this is what happens, okay? And this is why a lot of our youth don't want to participate, don't want to learn, okay? And dispel some myths regarding our history also. Now, anytime I speak, I know I may say some things that are outside the circumference of some people's awareness. Doesn't mean it's not true, just means you have to do some research to understand what I'm talking about, okay? And this clip here of Malcolm, I'm not going to show it because I don't think it's set up to show, but very quickly, this is about 59 seconds. What Malcolm asks here in this clip is, who are you? And he says, don't tell me Negro, what were you before the white man named you a Negro? Where were you? What did you have? What was your name? It couldn't have been Smith or Jones or Bunch or Powell. That wasn't your name. We didn't have those type of names where you and I came from. What was your name? And why don't you now know what your name was then? He asked, what happened to your history? How did the man wipe out your history? Where did your history go? What happened to your land? What happened to your language? He said, what did the man do to make you as dumb as you are right now? So when you see something like this, right, this really makes you to start reflecting and realize what has been taken away from us, okay? And this is something that has to be reclaimed. So when we ask the question of who are you, we have to understand, even though the history of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade is part of our history goes way beyond slavery. Not just around the world, but even in this country, okay? How many people familiar with Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence? Anybody familiar with him? Google his name. You'll see my name come up, because I interviewed him 11 times. We've done 2 lectures together here in Detroit. His book is a groundbreaking book, came out in 2011. It documents the African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years. Not based upon mythology, but based upon archaeological evidence. So page 14 of his book deals with it, and he's working on a new book. It's coming out at the end of this month, called The First Americans Were Africans Revisited, which has about 200 additional pages, a lot more research, a lot more documentation. But on page 14 of his book, he deals with evidence of an African presence found in Allendale County, South Carolina, discovered by Dr. Albert Goodyear, who's an archaeologist at the University of South Carolina. Just happens to be a white archaeologist. And this discovery was made in 2004. Here's what they found. They found 13 different disciplines thoroughly documented an African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years ago. They found artifacts, architecture, campsites, carvings, Egyptian writings, footprints in lava, genetic M174 haploid group dealing with DNA and genetics. They found linguistics, paintings, skulls, skeletons, structures, and tools. His book has not just 713 footnotes that you can go and research yourself. It's also backed up by 7 peer-reviewed articles, which is the height of academia as well. okay? So if you go to his website, historictruth.info, you can download a 2-page abstract, a 2-page overview of his book for free, where he lays out a lot of his research and documentation. All right, now this is Dr. Albert Goodyear. Like I said, he's a archaeologist at the University of South Carolina. This is an article from 15 years ago that deals with his discovery that you can go and read and document and research yourself. It's at ScienceDaily.com. The name of this article is New Evidence Puts Man in North America 50,000 Years Ago. ScienceDaily.com is a scientific website. It posts scientific studies and articles, things like this. This is a summary of what the article says. This is not my summary. This is their summary. Here's what the article says. Radiocarbon tests of carbonized plant remains where artifacts were unearthed last May along the Savannah River in Allendale County. University of South Carolina archaeologist Dr. Albert Goodyear indicated that the settlements containing these artifacts are at least 50,000 years old, meaning that humans inhabited North America long before the last ice age. Now that's not me saying it. This is what the evidence shows. Okay? Go read that article yourself. Proper documentation ends all conversation. You don't have to believe a word that I say. All right, now.
Well, we kind of know that. I mean, we broke off from Africa anyway.
A lot of people don't know that. I travel across the country doing lectures. A lot of people don't know the African
there was one continent that it all broke off.
A lot of people, sister, I'm trying to tell you. Okay. I do lectures all across the country. Atlanta, Chicago, D.C., Baltimore. A lot of our people don't understand that. I have my Facebook fan page. I have 1 million followers on the fan page. A lot of our people don't know the African presence in this country, going back tens of thousands of years ago. It's because, see, right now, you have people talking about the 400th-year anniversary of Jamestown, Virginia, August 20, 1619. Okay? Now, even though that did happen, August 20, 1619, coming in on that, they tell us it's a Dutch warship. It was actually an English warship. It was actually an English ship because those Africans started in Angola. They were captured in Angola by the Portuguese. It was 350 of them. And they're going into Mexico. They get hijacked around the coast of Mexico by English pirates. The English pirates take 50 of those Africans from Angola. They're on 2 ships, the White Lion and the Treasurer. Those 2 ships come into Jamestown, Virginia, August 20, 1619. The captain of the ship trades 20-some-odd Negroes, Africans, on the White Lion ship for food and supplies and things like this. And that's how they got here. So many people are under the impression, and this is what, unfortunately, a lot of the scholars say, this was the first time we came to this land. That's not true. That did happen. But we were here for tens of thousands of years ago before that, and if we just look at the Spanish were involved in the transatlantic slave trade before the English. The Spanish get involved right after the Portuguese. The Portuguese get involved right around 1440, 1441. When you look at Spain and Portugal, they're right next to each other. The Spanish were taking Africans into the territory we call today South Carolina in 1526. This is almost 100 years before Jamestown, Virginia. But that's not talked about. Okay, that history is totally left out. And not only that, if you understand the history of the Moors in Spain, the Spanish were kicking the Moors out and enslaving some of the Moors and taking them into Spanish territories like Florida and South Carolina, enslaving them. All this stuff was taking place at the same time. So this is why we have to understand the chronology of history. Okay? So when we deal with Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and he was known as the father of Black History Month, and is credited with laying the foundation for Black studies in colleges today. Okay? He was born December 9, 1875 in New Canton, Virginia. 10 years after slavery ended. He was born to former slaves. Okay? And he's going to go on to get a PhD from Harvard University in 1912. This was a brilliant brother. He's going to teach at high school. He's going to teach at Howard University. But what he's going to do is, in 1915 was a pivotal year. 1915 was the 50th year anniversary of the Civil War ending, June 2nd, 1865. The 13th Amendment, which was ratified December 6, 1865, which legally ends chattel slavery. And then also, December 24th, 1865, you have the Ku Klux Klan, which was founded in Pulaski, Tennessee. All right? But what's going to happen is there's going to be a symposium, a 3-week symposium in Chicago to chronicle and celebrate and commemorate the 50 years of slavery ending and documenting what has happened to us since then. It's a 3-week symposium. They have exhibits, they have speeches, things like this. So it's at this symposium he gets the idea to create an organization to document, research, preserve the history, accomplishments, and achievements of African Americans on this continent, but also on the continent of Africa. So September 9, 1915, he and some friends, he and 4 co-founders, 4 friends, they formed the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. The Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, September 9, 1915, okay? And this is going to be the organization that he is going to lead until he dies in 1950. He founds Negro History Week in 1926 because he's an educator and he understands that most of our people don't know their history and most of our children don't know their history as well, okay? All right, so now at this period of time, right, leading up to 26, you got the Harlem Renaissance in the 1910s going into the 1930s. You got the Marcus Garvey movement in this country. 1916, Garvey is convicted in 1923. He goes to prison in 1925. But you have the Universal Negro Movement Association. You got World War I that takes place, 1914 and 1918. You got about 5 million men that served in World War I. 370,000 of them African-American men. And when these brothers come back, they're saying, look, we fought in this war, we shed our blood, we're not dealing with this segregation. There are going to be some changes. The year after 1918, when World War I ends, called the Red Summer, 1919. You have over 25 major race riots across this country that break out, okay? Because when these white men went to World War I, they had jobs. When they came back, these jobs were being done by African Americans and immigrants coming to this country. So this caused race riots across the street, across the country.
Sounds
so,
like today.
Say again?
Sounds like today.
Yeah, well, it was even worse back then. It was even worse back then. So you have this going on in 1919. Then we go, if you look at 1921, we have the attack on Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We have 1923, the Rosewood Massacre. Okay, January 1923, the movie Rosewood, 1997 was made by John Singleton. Okay, all this is taking place. So when he creates Negro History Week in 1926, also very important, 1915, the movie The Birth of a Nation comes out. Okay, so last week was the 104th anniversary of the movie The Birth of a Nation that came out February 8, 1915. Okay, and this movie caused race riots in the streets. It cost $100,000 to make the movie. But this movie depicted the Ku Klux Klan as the heroes of the movie. And this movie rejuvenated the Ku Klux Klan in this country. Because the Klan had pretty much died out by 1915. All right? And it was so popular that in newspaper ads, where they would take out ads to promote the film of The Birth of a Nation, the Ku Klux Klan will oftentimes take out recruiting ads next to that ad for the movie The Birth of a Nation. So this rejuvenated the Klan. And it's going to be because of the rejuvenation of the Ku Klux Klan. That's one of the main things. And the Republican Party starting to ignore our issues. You're going to start seeing a shift that takes place in 1928 with the rise of the Lily White movement in the Republican Party. And this is why African Americans are going to shift from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. And one of their grievances was that the Republican Party was ignoring the rise of the Ku Klux Klan and the effect it was having on us, okay? Because you go back to the Civil War, and afterwards, most African Americans were Republicans. Because the Republican Party was founded in 1854 by groups of abolitionists who would have countered to the Democratic Party, okay? So you have this movie, and this is going to really legitimize a lot of this terrorism on us, okay? Now, what a lot of people don't know is that when this movie came out, African Americans protested against this movie. The NAACP led protests against the movie The Birth of a Nation. Read this article from theroot.com, how Black America rallied to stop the racist film The Birth of a Nation. This came out March 1st, 2015. This was the 100th year, basically the 100th year anniversary of the film The Birth of a Nation, okay? And William Monroe Trotter in Boston, when he came to Boston, he led protests against this movie. And there was a documentary from about 2016, 2017 on PBS, Independent Lens. It was called The Birth of a Movement. The Birth of a Movement. They may show it this month. And it's all about how William Monroe Trotter led protests against the movie The Birth of a Nation when it came to Boston. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that we used to own 150 production companies. Some completely owned by African Americans, others partly owned by African Americans. The most prolific movie maker and director was Oscar Micheaux. But we used those movies to fight against these negative stereotypical images of us that white people were projecting of us, okay? And there were movies that we put out, like in 1918, that were answer movies retaliating against the film The Birth of a Nation. We didn't just lay down and take it. So African Americans fight back against negative images by producing our own movies. African Americans have been making our own movies since the movie The Birth of a Nation came out in 1915. We have about 150 production companies, some completely owned by African Americans, others partly owned by African Americans, that produce our own movies. So this is not new. When we see a Spike Lee, okay, we saw Robert Townsend back in the 80s, we've been doing that for decades, okay? They're just continuing the tradition. Oscar Micheaux was the most well-known director of the era. From 1918 to 1948, he directed and produced 44 movies. Now, how many people are familiar with Donald Bogle? B-O-G-L-E. Donald Bogle is the godfather of African American cinema. And he's written books dealing with this, documenting this history. This book right here is a fantastic book. I don't even take it out of the house. I think it's out of print. I'm not sure, but I don't want to find out the hard way, okay? It's called Blacks in American Films and Television, an Illustrated Encyclopedia. This came out in 1988. This book right here, what it does is, it's an encyclopedia of all the movies and TV shows that had African Americans in them up until 1988. It gives you a synopsis of it, who directed it, background information, all that stuff. It's a huge, thick book. Check that out, see if you can get it on Amazon. Okay, it's a lot of history in there also. All right, let me fast forward to some of this. Okay, so he creates a Negro History Week in 1926. Now, it was never designed to be the only time of the year we study our history. It's supposed to be a celebration of our history, to reflect on our accomplishments and achievements, also to connect us to the history and accomplishments and achievements on the continent of Africa. And Dr. Carter G. Woodson felt that it did not, when it came to school children, this was supposed to be the time of the year that they showed us what they had been studying year-round. He said it did not make sense to just teach our history 1 week out of the year. He said that didn't make sense. He also felt that the history of African Americans had to be taught in every school in this country. Not just the schools we're in, every school in this country, because he firmly believed that the prejudice and bigotry that we suffer comes from stereotypes and lies being told about us, and people not knowing the truth of what we contributed to this country, okay? And the reason why it's in February is because of the birth dates of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. So there were already celebrations that African Americans were having, celebrating the birth dates of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. So this new celebration that he created, he put in that period of time, the second week in February also, okay? All right, so now, what a lot of people don't know is there are annual themes each year for African American History Month. And I've looked at the themes going back to about 1928. So, and when you look at some of the themes, they deal with the continent of Africa also. So here are just 5 themes throughout history. 1928, civilization, a world achievement. 1933, Ethiopia meets era and truth. 1935, the Negro achievements in Africa. 1936, African background outline. These are the official themes for Negro History Week that the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History were putting out back at this time. 1960, strengthening America through education in Negro history and African culture. 1971, African civilization and culture, a worthy historical background. For more information, go to their website, asala.org, asala.org, asala.org. This is the official website of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. They have tools you can use in the homeschooling, in the classroom, tools that you can use year-round for African American History Month 1, but also year-round, okay? And this year's theme is dealing with black migrations, okay? Forced migrations, voluntary migrations, especially the great migration of the early 20th century. All right, now, what a lot of people don't know, because a lot of people say, well, why do we have just 1 month? Why do we have the shortest month of the year? Things like this, right? Other ethnic groups have their monthly cultural celebrations. We were the first ones to do it. We ran away from ours and denigrate what we have, while other people celebrate theirs. So a lot of people don't know May is Jewish American History Month. How many people knew that? May is Jewish American History Month. September 15th, October 15th is National Hispanic History Month. Hispanics have 2 monthly cultural celebrations. March is Irish American History Month. May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. May is also Haitian Heritage Month. November is Native American History Month. Then September 15th to October 15th, they also have Hispanic Heritage Month. In October is German American, Polish American Heritage Month. For more information, you can go to this website here, brownylocks.com, BROWNIE, brownylocks.com. They list all the celebrations and holidays for each day of the year. But when you study all these, right, they all come after 1976, basically. 1976 is when Negro History Week becomes Black History Month. It's expanded to a month. It is nationally recognized by the federal government, by the president, by the Congress. So they saw what we were doing. They said we want our monthly national celebrations also. And every year Congress puts out an official statement recognizing not just African American History Month, but also recognizing these different monthly cultural celebrations as well. We created all this and we denigrated it. Okay? So we have to understand how powerful this is. People are imitating us. Alright? Alright, very quickly. Famous quote from Dr. Carnegie Woodson in The Miseducation of the Negro, because he was an author. He wrote many books. His most important, most well-known book, Miseducation of the Negro, 1933. He said, when you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. You don't have to tell him, do not stand here or go yonder. He will find his proper place to stay in it. You don't need to send him to the back. He said, you don't need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. And in fact, if there is no back door, he will cut one for his special benefit because his education makes it necessary. He's talking about the program. He's talking about what happens when we don't understand our history and culture. Bantu Stephen Biko, one of my great South African freedom fighters, he said the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. If you saw the 1987 movie called Cry Freedom, starring Denzel Washington playing Stephen Biko, you're familiar with Stephen Biko, okay? And then very quickly here, read this article. This is from yesterday. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam slammed for referring to first indentured servants from Africa instead of slaves. I already gave some background information about that. They're coming into Virginia. At the time they come into Virginia in 1619, there are no slave statutes. There are no slave laws in the 13 colonies. They don't come into existence. The first colony to have slave statutes was Maryland in 1641. It doesn't come to Virginia until 1661. If you read Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr., page 443, how many people read this book? Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr. Pull it out off your bookshelf. Go to the back. He has a chronology of history, each year going back to 1619. And he talks about those 20-some-odd Africans who came here. And he said that they were most likely indentured servants. The reason why is slave laws in those 13 colonies at this point in 1619 don't exist. See, the way we think about slavery, it evolves over time. It didn't just pop up, okay? So when you read this article, what Governor Northam said was he went to Fort Comfort in Virginia, Jamestown, Virginia, where those Africans came in. And he said he went there and he referred to them as slaves. And he said he was corrected by a historian who told him they were indentured servants. Because at that time, slave statutes didn't exist. It didn't exist in Jamestown. It didn't exist in Virginia, period. It didn't exist in any of the 13 colonies. Okay? So we have to understand that history. All right? And then the film Black Panther connects to African history and culture. I'll open up for questions right now. You got Mansa Musa. And you know, when we look at T'Challa, how many people saw the film Black Panther? So T'Challa is basically the richest man in the world, which is also Mansa Musa, who's the richest man in the history of the world. It's not Jeff Bezos. It's not Donald Trump. It's Mansa Musa. Became Emperor of the Mali Empire, 1312 AD. That's not just me saying it. The History Channel confirms this. Their website, history.com, read this article. This 14th century African emperor remains the richest person in history. Okay? So I'll wrap it up with that. Let me know if you have any questions. This is just a brief overview. I don't know how much time I have or anything like that, but this is just a brief overview of some of this history. Okay? That many of our people don't understand. And it's important for us to teach this to our children in their studies, like this one right here. I'll show you this quickly. African American teens with racial pride do better in school. This was a joint study by the University of Pittsburgh and Harvard University from about 2012. Here's what it said briefly. A new study by University of Pittsburgh and Harvard University shows that when parents use racial socialization, such as talking to their children or engaging in activities that promote feelings of racial knowledge, pride and connection, like bringing them to events like this, taking them to Dr. King Day celebrations, Malcolm X Day celebrations, things like this. It offsets racial discrimination's potentially negative impact on students' academic development, okay? And you can read, there's an article from AfricanGlobe.net that talked about this, or you can just Google University of Pittsburgh, Harvard University, African American teens with racial pride do better in school. You can read the study. But there's documentation on this also. Okay? So I'll wrap up with that. Thanks for your attention. If you have any questions, let me know. I have my DVD lessons in the back dealing with our history also. So any questions?
Okay.
Yes, sister.
You mentioned earlier about how we feel about ourselves, and that contributes a lot to how we react to certain things.
Right.
This may be difficult to explain, but how do you not care about you?
Well, what happens
No one can teach you not to care about you.
Well, what happens is when you've never been taught your history and culture, and you have, I'm not saying all of us, but when we see a lot of the images that we see of ourselves in the media are negative stereotypical images. And studies show that African Americans watch more TV than other ethnic groups. We consume more media. When you have things like Love and Hip Hop, you have TV shows like Empire, you have negative corporate hip hop that's promoting criminality to us and all types of negative things. I'm not against hip hop. I grew up listening to conscious hip hop. I know conscious hip hop artists. I know Professor Griff, Public Enemy. I know speech from Arrested Development. But when you internalize that, right, and you watch the hip hop videos and you see all this negativity promoted, and you never read the autobiography of Malcolm X. You don't understand our history, right? So what happens is, and when people around you are exhibiting those same type of behaviors, it's easy for you to fall prey to that. This is why we have to get this information to our children at a young age. We have to get it to the parents so they can take it back home to the children, but also we have to get it to our children at a young age to counter what's in the media. We have to fight against what's in the media. One of the things we have to do, the corporations that put out the negative corporate control hip-hop, we have to engage in economic withdrawal strategies. For one thing, we need to look at where our pension funds are invested. A lot of our pension funds are invested in entertainment companies that put out negative corporate control hip-hop. Some of our mutual funds are invested in some of those companies. We know a lot of our pension funds and our mutual funds are invested in privatized prisons. That's been documented. Yes. Okay? It's also invested in entertainment companies. And you can determine where what industries you're invested in.
How do we begin to, because I remember at a time when BET was actually owned by blacks.
Bob Johnson and his wife Sheila.
Yeah, when they had positive shows on there, like
they did Teen Summit, they had Teen Summit, they had Tavis Smiley's show, they had Lead Story, they had Bev Smith.
Yeah, but then, was it Vistion? Is it
Viacom bought BET.
And suddenly you have
they got rid of all that stuff.
All of this negativity.
Right.
But it's not packaged as negative, you know, because you have people clamoring to get on TV and shake their booty like the rest of them.
Right. Well, and see, what that comes from is that foundation not being there. Your history and culture gives you your values, your interests, and your principles, your VIPs, right? This is Dr. Linda Jeffries, this is what Professor James Small teaches. Your history and culture is your foundation, influences your economics and your politics. It gives you your VIPs, your values, your interests, and your principles. And everything else emanates from that.
Well, you know what? My son told me something today. He said, when there is no pride, Mama, there can be no shame.
Right. And this is what I said. The reason why many of our people don't fight back is because many of our people don't think that we're fighting for it. You know, what you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. That's why I call people the N-word. That's why I call our women out their names, things like that. Because if you study post-traumatic slave syndrome by Dr. Jordan Grew, she talks about how negative labels are put on people to change the way people think about them. So then they can justify the mistreatment of those people, and there will be no backlash for mistreating them.
Stripping you of your humanity.
Exactly. That's dehumanizing. Yes. I saw a hand.
I was going to ask, Sears and Roebuck. Wasn't Roebuck black?
I don't know about that.
Was that black? They said he was black.
Would you read that? I'm not familiar with that.
You could look it up.
Okay.
But that's what I heard.
Okay.
Black Roebuck was.
Okay, I'm Yeah.
Okay? We
Yeah.
definitely have to have a summit. And we have to have a summit for the youth.
We're
Yeah.
actually planning a youth summit, the NAACP.
Okay.
And I was thinking this was perfect. We're looking at, let me just pull up the email. We're looking at overnight for the young people, Western Wayne County branch of the NAACP.
Okay.
We're actually the Michigan branch of the year this year.
Right.
And I'm thinking that is such a perfect fit.
Yeah, all those things are extremely important for the youth summit. Also, it shows the youth that people care about them as well.
Well, you also find out that our young generation is right there with you. My sons, both are always listening to Neely Fuller. They're always
Yeah, Nelly
listening.
Fuller,
Yeah, they're
Dr.
always
Francis Cress
listening.
Wilson.
Yes, and this white supremacist whole mindset that we've got to shift from.
Right. They're probably familiar with me then.
Oh, for sure. They probably are.
Yeah. And I knew Dr. Francis Cress Wilson. I
Yes.
interviewed his sister 3 times.
Yeah, I've got to make sure I get your information, and then Sandy, if we could some kind of way collaborate to get most of our young people in to hear this. Because the biggest challenge really is the people that should value you the most as you're growing.
Right.
They tend to dehumanize you, make you feel useless. Your voice means nothing in your household.
Right.
When you talk to one another, all of these things reinforce my value to you,
Right.
or my lack thereof.
Right.
So I think this has been so powerful. My sons would even go watch Black Panther because they felt like that it was an insult to the Black Panthers, that it was originated just for that purpose. And I'm like, wait a minute, when I see this, I can't wait to get home and show them that.
This is a deep movie.
Yeah,
This is a deep movie. This comes right out of
but
educated
you
Wakanda Salute.
know, the one guy was like, first of all, the challenge was the black woman gave the secrets to everything about the strength to the white man. They let the white man in. The one little guy that was the pilot, they let him into the secret place. They brought him back into the secret.
You have to study the Black Panther comic book. See, to be able to do my presentation
I
on Black
told him
Panther,
that.
to be able to do my presentations on Black Panther, I had to go study the 52-year history of the Black Panther comic book.
Yeah, but you know what I didn't realize? They came out together.
What?
The Black Panther movement and that comic book from DC.
Well, the Black Panther character debuted July 1966 in Fantastic Four issue number 52. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense started October 1966 in Oakland, California.
Yeah.
So the Black Panther character predated the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. Well, when
See, I need you to really be there. Let me just get
and
That's
the film,
we need to bring truth to our passion. Because we can be passionate and not even be factual.
Oh, absolutely.
And not only bring truth to them, but bring it from someone who's not saying, listen to me because I know.
And I'm your
Because he
mother.
follows up so much with what he says by saying, you don't have to listen to me, go find out for yourself. And that's always been my thing, be your own detective.
It's just like the word Wakanda. Wakanda is a real word. Wakanda is a Native American language, it's the Omaha Ponca language, the Sioux Indian language. It means possessing secret powers. It's a Bantu word as well. Bantus are over 500 languages. So this film relates to African history, culture, language. We see the representation of 11 different African cultures.
April 6th, so try to say
April
that
6th?
date. Yes.
Okay,
And
April
we're going to
6th.
try to
My
have
email
a
address,
partnership with them.
so email that.
They're trying to decide if it's going to be at the big rec in Romulus or Wayne County, or we could even do our complex, and it's Robichaud and E-Course, because they've been doing a lot of things with us.
Okay.
So,
I saw
the NAACP.
Okay. Yeah, it's email it.
And we still, once again, what I'm trying to do, every time we do something, is involve the church.
Right.
Involve the
Are you
church.
here local? Are you?
I live in Detroit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Was that your question?
That was.
Oh, okay. Did you have another
This
question?
was very good, Sandy. I wish we would have got this information
But he will be,
out to the young people.
yeah, but he will be at the next 3 showings of
Yeah.
What is next?
Next is High Praise Cathedral.
Oh, right on board. Okay.
Yeah, and then if
Bishop
we
Hat.
bring him, I'm gonna email you a flyer that I emailed him.
Yeah.
This was very good.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so I'll wrap up with that. I have my DVD lectures in the back. I have a presentation that was the film Black Panther, including one I did for children, Black Wall Street, A lot of information back there also. They're all on sale today. That helps to finance the African History Network. Fellows keep doing the research, broadcast the radio show, everything. All right? All right, so thanks for your attention.
Thank you.
Wakanda forever.
Yep.